So for today we have Redux, as I already said, and I just want to basically, let's start from the reminder from Monday. So we have three things, right? We have action, we have reducer, and store. So you need to do, you want to dispatch the action. That will trigger some changes in the reducer, and that will update your store or your global state. So actions, they are objects, right? What is the required key for the object, for the action?
I can't remember. Although we did that 2 days ago. Oh, is it type?
Yep, exactly. That was type. So you specify in type. So you pass in that through reducer, and reducer creates a new state and return you a new state. So yes, this is the life cycle of Redux. So yeah, let's go back to React. So React, basically, let's say our app has state. Let's imagine that we created state. An app, we are taking the state and passing as props all the way down, right? So if you have the hierarchy of app, property list, property, inquiry form, and submit buttons, and we want to modify something on submit, that means that we need to pass the handler all the way down, click and pass it all the way up, and that will basically modify something in the app. So this is our life with just props and regular states without global state. So this is what we've done for props exercises. And yeah, so it is confusing when I'm not sure, have you tried to build the applications that we've asked, but when you start building and you have more components, it becomes very confusing and it is hard to track everything. So this is it is hard, like, to manage all the data, and your code become very messy. Yeah, so it's very easy to make errors and mistakes and spellings, and yeah, it just as I said, because your code becomes messy, it's hard to handle it. It's time consuming because you need to pass your data in both directions. You need to go to check, like, basically, again, it takes more time for you to create this code and maintain. And difficult to refactor, because imagine that you've decide to change any component from the chain, like here, some like property, for example. That means that you need to carefully go through and edit your chain and make sure that you're passing through all your props in the right way. So again, that might cause a lot of errors. Yeah, so Redux basically allows you to not have a state if you don't need it in app. You don't need to create the local state for app. Submit form receives props from state in store, so you can directly have an access to the store, to the global state. And function you use is dispatch, and you receive direct from the store. So if you want to dispatch the action, this is what we done on Monday. You just doing dispatch some action, and you receiving data from the store. So this is the actual term, React prop drilling, when you pass in your from your component all the way down with props. So this is actual term, prop drilling. And again, just to if you repeat one, you might fail the whole application. So with Redux, you might remember that on Monday I was drawing you the tree that basically Redux all your components, it's the spikes, basically have direct access to the store, to the global state. So it's very easy to get data. And all components can get data directly. So this is the main benefit for React. And here we have just an example. And yeah, so here we're just getting some properties. And today I'll show you two ways of handling basically Redux in React. I will show you the old way. It is not that old that you don't need it, but today like everyone are using the latest version of React and React hooks. So I will show it that one as well. But I also show you the older one that you will still see a lot in different applications, and you need to see how it's organized. By the way, I might struggle a bit with recreating this because I'm not using that on daily basis, so we might stuck together. We'll see. And yeah, so let me just go to the next one. We have so a few things for the old way of handling React. We have map state to props. So that means that you're taking everything from state and sending as props to your component. So this is what you do with map state to props. It is a function. It receives state from your store, from global state, let's say, and return props to your component. So yeah, here we have basically you can get just a part of your state. You don't need to pass the whole state to each component. You can specifically return actual thing. So here, for example, we have a list of properties, and we want to get specific property. So you just look in for specific property. So yeah, it's more realistic thing. You need to connect basically your Redux to the component. And what you do, if you have a component, let's say property, and you have map state to props, so you want to actually add some data from Redux to React, normally you have like export default and property, right? But now, because you want to connect the state, you're doing connect and passing as a so first attribute, the attribute to the main function is map state to props, which is your function for state. And this, remember what is the syntax? Why it looks like that? Can you do you remember from JavaScript? Sorry. What is the syntax? What does it mean? If you see, let's say, that kind of code, what do you see, and what do you understand from that?
I see a function that maps the state to props. I don't know.
So you see the function connect that takes some argument.
And the argument, yeah, map is
a function.
Is a function, yeah.
Yeah, but what is this?
I'm not sure.
So what your connect will return to you?
I'm not sure.
So when you have parentheses, right?
Yeah.
That means that you want to execute a function.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that this function will return you a function, right? The callback function. So that means if I quickly create some simple example, that means that you have some function connect that takes some map state to props, does something and return a function which will component, and that will do something with your component. Yeah? So that means that you can now execute this function with something, with another function, I don't know, with whatever. In our case, it doesn't matter. It can be a string, kitten. And that will return you a new function. So that is why you will do this and pass your component. Right? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, makes sense now.
Yep. Okay, cool. Let me go back to the code. So yeah, basically you have you need to connect. You've importing this from React Redux, and you connecting basically props. Map state to props and your component. Yeah. Cool. So to have an access to the Redux, you need to use provider component, and you basically need to wrap the whole application into provider. Sorry. So this is a component from React Redux, and this is what you do in your index.js. So you import in provider, and then you wrap in the whole application. So let's actually start doing setup. So what do we have here? We don't need to have report. Okay, so this is some very basic setup. I don't have React Redux, so let's actually React Redux. So let's actually install that to our application because we have just a basic application. So npm install, right? Mm-hmm. And let's install our React Redux. Whoa. Yeah, so here in Redux documentation, you can actually see that we want to have a few things. We want to have provider, we want to have create store because we want to initialize store. So let's do that here. And you can see that we are creating a variable store and we need to have a reducer. So we want to create a reducer, at least one. So let's create reduce folder reducers. And there I will create some very basic reducer, index.js. So remember that we can have like init state, and that let's create a counter, right? So we will have 0, good old counter, and here we will have const counter, and that will take, this is a function, and that will take, remember, action. And yeah, pretty much action. Oh, sorry. So first initial is state and action, right? So because we want to start from something, we use init state. Ooh, sorry. Something like that. And we will return state in our case. So our counter does nothing. Export default counter. So we don't do anything because we don't have actions, we don't have anything, we just initialize in reducer, the very default one. So now I want to add a store, create a store. So I will do create store and I will put my reducer. So, oh, by the way, I forgot about my reducer. So import, I need to have my reducer count say counter from, and that will be users index. Yep. And we, oh, so they are saying that, oh, by the way, yeah, sorry, my bad. Naming convention, lowercase, because it's not a component. So now I have a provider and I want to wrap my I want to wrap my application into the provider. So the whole application will have access to Redux. And we need to say define property store to store that we just initialized. So this is pretty much it. We already have the Redux. Remember the other thing that we need to add to make it work is, oh yeah, sorry, it's complaining because we don't have Redux, which is the dependency for React Redux. So I will just install npm install Redux. That should be fine. So we have counter. I just want to add the tool. Remember Redux dev tools for Chrome. I need to add this line. Where is the Edge Redux integration? Where it is? Where is it? Let me just find the line for the setup. Redux integration, browser extension, mutual integration. Just looking for this setup from the last lesson. Let me check. They might have some details here.
I remember there was the end kind of E and E, attached.
Yeah. Environment something, but normally you just copy paste. Yeah, this one.
Oh yeah, that's one.
So now here you just add in as a second argument to your create store, and this is it. So I think that we have a default setup for the application. Let me just refresh the page. Right, we've crashed our application. Let's start it again. Come on, yeah. So now if I inspect, go to Redux, we actually see the store. So we've connected our thing, and in init, in state, we have just 0, right? We have just, yeah. Great, awesome. So we have our Redux. This is a default setup. Every time you create an app and you want to use Redux, you need to wrap the whole application into the provider and connect the store. Yeah. So we already, any questions on that one?
Not so far, no.
Okay. So yeah, map state to props to get data from state to props. And we also have map dispatch to props to be able to dispatch some actions. So and map dispatch to props is a function basically to change state. So here, let me just copy paste it. We will adjust the. We will adjust that one. Let me just go to the app. So now, we don't have many components here. Let me actually remove everything from here. And I want to have h1, and let's render count. So I'm expecting from my props, I'm expecting count, right? So the first thing is this is map dispatch to props, which not for now. We don't have anything. let's leave it for a second. I want to actually add map state to props. Do we have anything? No, we don't. So we actually can map state to props. Actually, do they have here map state to props? Okay. So map state to props. Where is the okay, let's actually I will add it because I have an example I think here. Yeah. So this is a function that returns you something from state. So what you will do, just const map state, map state to props. And here you will return an object and we will return count. And because our state is very simple, that might be just state. We will return as count. Remember that we also need to import connect from React Redux. So now we can connect our application with map state to props and our application. So hopefully
now I can now understand that. Okay. Always good to see things in action.
Yeah, so let me just refresh the page. We have 0, right? So now we're finally mapping data from our reducer. If we change it to, I don't know, to 5, we have 5. So we are actually getting data from state. Yeah. So again, you have map state to props and you have your state, you map in state. Because your state is very flat, it's not an object, it's nothing, it's just literally just a number. That is why you have just state. If you have more complex state, that will be a complex thing. And we will get there today as well. So let me just, let's go back actually to our map state, map dispatch to props. So here, for our connect, first argument is map state to props, but the second argument is your map dispatch to props, right? So this is how you will add your maps dispatch to props, the actions that you want to have. And here, for us, we want to have increment, and we will dispatch action increment, right? And now, let me just pass that as a second parameter. And now that we should be able to have an access to that. Let me actually just to that property const app. Let me just quickly. I want to change to props because I want to show you what we are getting, the whole props, and console log props. And here we will have our props.count. So let's see. Let's actually see what we will have. So you have increment, which is a function, right? So every time you will call this function, we will dispatch the action increment. So we're not handling in Redux this action, but we will get there in a few minutes. But we actually get an increment. So here I will create my buttons increment, and on click, right, we will call our props.increment. This is it. And here, So now we actually have some actions. Let me just get const. I want to deconstruct my type and actions. And here, as usual, I will create switch for type and case increment. I will do return state +1, right? And for default, I will have return state, right? So if we mismatch, we just return original state. So let's refresh and try to increment. As you can see, we are incrementing now. So we dispatching actions actually now. So yeah, so let's actually add decrement. So here we will add decrement. We will have decrement here, and we want to create a mapper to decrement. Decrement and decrement, and that means that for this one we will have minus and we will have decrement. Refresh. Yeah, so it is working now. Perfect. Now I want to add another type which will be add, and I want to add specific number. So wait a sec, let me just refresh to 0, so we will start from 0. And here, let's say I want to add a number. I want to create an input. Let's actually play with React a bit as a reminder. So div, let's actually have form, right? Form here, and we will have input. That will be a number, and yeah, so that will be a number, and here we will have button add. Right? So how we will handle the form? Help me. Forget about Redux for now, just how we will get the number.
How we get the number, so you're saying in the form you want to input a number, whatever number, or you want to put the number?
So yeah, how basically I want to get this data here, right? So when somebody will click add, I want to get this data from input.
Yes. So you would need to have I don't know how it works in React, but you want to have a event listener that listens for the
yeah.
When you click on the button.
Is it about button or about form?
The form, sorry, yeah.
So what do you want to listen for?
On click.
For JavaScript, when you listen in for form, can you click on form?
Oh, so it's submit, sorry.
Yeah. So in React, you have not at event listener submit, you have just on submit.
Yeah.
And you want to have form
yeah.
submit handler. Let's say that we have form submit handler. So we need to have a function. Okay, so that means that we are passing some event inside.
Mm-hmm.
So first thing, as typical JavaScript, event prevent default, right?
Mm-hmm.
Second thing, I want to get my input value. So const. Here we have two things, by the way. Remember, I was explaining you what is two-ways binding and how you can change. You can have a local state when you changing your number, So you can listen for change of the input and update state. A few lessons ago.
Yeah.
So you can directly get value as like, I don't know, value. And that will be event target, not value, query selector, input dot value. So typical JavaScript, right?
Yeah.
And then I want to, and basically I just want to convert it, parse int, because that will be a number, a string, and I want to have a number. Okay, so try to remember from the last lesson, how can we send data? So we definitely want to have, send data to Redux, I mean. So we definitely want to have the third action. So let's create the third action, and I will call it, I don't know, add. And let's call it add. Yeah, so now we are getting the third from props, we are getting add as well. So let's actually, now we understand what we have. So we can have count, increment, decrement, add. So we don't need props here. And we don't need props here. Okay. So how we can send this data?
Don't need console log props, or
yeah, we don't need it. Thank you. How can we send? So we have this action. We want to add my, this is a function to dispatch the action, right? So we can dispatch the action, but we want to send this value. How can we do that?
So you want to dispatch a type add.
Yeah.
And then you want to do it in the same way you did with wait a minute, I'm just thinking, like, you want to do this in your index.js, or you want to do it here?
No, you have this, you dispatch an action here, so you want to have it here. But remember that your add is just a function.
Yeah.
So that means that you can think about your add as about a function. What do you do if you want to have some value inside the function? So you have some global variable.
Have some value in the function, yeah.
And you want to have it inside the function. What do you normally do? You might be just confused.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused, sorry. So are you talking about like an anonymous function here, or another?
Just a regular function. Imagine that you have a function like render name, right? And you want to have a name inside the function. What do you do?
If you want to have a name in the function.
Yep. So you want to call a function with a name and render that name. So what do you do?
Sorry, I'm not following.
So you have a function render a name. And whatever you want to have the name inside the function, and you will call the function with a name. I'm talking about arguments.
Oh, an argument, yeah. Okay, you know, I was wondering if it was what you wanted, but
yeah.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So you pass in the argument. How you will handle this argument? So you pass in it. That means that you want to receive it, right here.
Yeah.
So that means that you have it. You will have it here, your value. And now you've gotten your value, and you want to send it to with dispatch with your type. Remember on Monday I showed you how to send data.
Yeah. So you need to put a comma and then what was it again? Was it value? Or
you can send anything. It can be kitten, and you will get by kitten. But just a pattern like everybody's following, so you will not mismatch in one places, and you might just not to cause many errors. Everybody is calling this thing payload.
Oh yeah, now I remember. Okay.
So it will constantly will be payload, and you will not confuse yourself. So now you're actually dispatching the value, right? And in my reducer, I have payload. So now I can create a separate case and have add. And I will just add payload.
Payload, yeah.
So let's go. We definitely broke something. Let's check what did we break. Do I have...
Are you adding state plus payload? Is that...
No, it is working now. Yeah, this is what I'm doing. State plus payload. Okay, so now it is working. So now I will take, let's say, 10 and hit add. Yeah? 5. And it is working. Increment, decrement, 20. Yeah? So you pass in your payload through it. And basically this is the old way of handling the Redux with React. So you have map dispatch to props, map state to props, and many people, they are practicing to have, I will show you the example. Let me just create some folder with like containers. And there I will create, I don't know, counter. Let's say I will create counter component. Folder counter. I just want to move everything from the app to the counter. And here I will have my counter counter.js React functional component, and I'm moving it here, export default counter, and I will just copy paste everything I have here because I don't need it here. I just want to replace it. Yeah, so this is how it should be. And here I will not have this. I need to have these things in my counter. I'm just migrating. And here I will have just import counter from containers counter. And here I will have my counter component, and I will move all of that to my counter, and we need to have, we need to have connect there, and we need to have this, so app here. So we don't have anything here. App is just very basic component, and here we have something like that, right? So that should behave absolutely the same because we just migrated a specific component. So refresh, yeah, still the same thing. We just have it in separate component. So the good practice on that point of time was that we will create a file like index.js. We will import a counter from counter. So we will, we will import our function, and we will do export default, we basically will do this. Sorry, where is it? No, sorry, I just accidentally quit the application. Lesson.
Oops.
Yeah. So here we will just take all of this, put export default and counter as regular as normally we have, right? So we have just a component. Here we will do this, and we need connect as well. And basically, we as a separate file, we will have just map state to props and map state to map dispatch to props and map state to props. And we will have this connection on this file separately. So we will not combine two. And here you have your pure component, right? And you have kind of a container or wrapper for your component. So this is how you normally have such things. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so let's refresh. Oh, right, I forgot. npm start. And ooh, look at us. What's going on? Where's our 0? We're definitely missing something. Return, count, counter. Ah, wait a sec. No, count. That's fine. Why we don't have anything? Okay. Console log count. Undefined. Interesting. So let me check counter. Ah, sorry, wrong folder. So that should be inside. My bad. Yeah, I accidentally put them in different levels. So now counter, save, refresh. What's going on? Counter. And we have counter inside. We have counter. Ah, I know what's going on. So this one here, we importing counter, but we actually want to import index. So basically index.js, not the component directly. So refresh. Now we have our data. And it behaves as it was. Sorry. Yeah, so you're basically just delegating this map state to something, or map dispatch, to the separate file, and you handling this as a wrapper. So another thing that I briefly remember, I hope this works like that. I want to pass some extra prop to my component, right? Because so now we have a barrier between component, between app and actual counter, which is this index file, right? Where we're mapping. So let me just, let's say, message. I want to pass any prop. Hello. And as I remember, you can pass props as a second argument to this map state to props. And what you will do, you will just spread props to this object. And hopefully you will get message. Message. Yeah, you have it. Does it make sense?
Not really. So if you go in counter, you have message. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so basically you want to include counter, and counter between counter and your app, you have this file, right?
Yeah.
You're not actually directly including counter, so you can't just pass your props directly. So if you have this wrapper, you can pass to map state to props, you can add second argument props, which will basically take all props that you will send here. So it will, like Redux will recognize that, all your props, and will take all these props here. And you want, this is your new props. So you are taking old props, everything you actually physically pass in here, plus...
Yeah. Why did you spread it? It's because it's the same kind of logic as before, where like you have to recreate a new object.
No, because you want to have just bunch of values, right? You don't want, if you put just props inside your props, you will have key props. Basically, you will have props, and you will have count. So in your props, you will have props and you will have count, two keys.
Right. Okay.
Because this is your new props.
Okay.
And inside this is props is an object, and inside this object you will have two keys, props and count. So to avoid this, you're just spreading everything you've passing through props from previous level. So you'll, for your props, you'll have bunch of keys, actual keys. Yeah?
Yeah.
Or I can actually show you. So if I pass props, we don't have this one here anymore. Let me actually just use props. And let me just, so we have add props, we have increment, decrement, props, and we have count, props count. So now let me console log props. If I refresh, so I have add, I have count, decrement, increment, message, and props. Why I'm actually having message? Let me check. It's odd that I have message here and I have props with message here. I should have just this. Okay, doesn't mean that I don't need to pass it at all, because I remember that I need it. Okay, so if I'm passing to component directly, refresh. Okay, it's handling automatically. It's smart enough to handle all the all props without it. So see that you can pass it here as well, and it will recognize it as a separate thing. But it also will pass automatically to your child. Okay, yeah, so you don't need to handle even that. I was sure maybe that was some older version where you need to actually map it. But yeah, so now even when you connect in it, it will automatically recognize and pass props as actual props. Fair enough. Yeah, you don't need to do this then manually. Perfect. So this is this is the old way of handling Redux. This is how we did probably like 3 years ago. And again, on my current company and in many other companies, I saw that many components, they still have this setup. And every new component that we are creating or we're refactoring, we move into Redux hooks, React hooks and Redux hooks, basically. So yeah, we will talk about Redux hooks in a few seconds. Any questions on this one?
No. No question.
Okay. So yeah, React Redux hooks. So the whole purpose of that is basically because the whole React was moving to hooks. Redux also got them, and now you have much leaner way to actually use Redux in your component for your components. So you have use selector to get. Oh, sorry. Now you have use selector to get something from state, and yeah, you can actually get some specific part of your state when you take in state, and you just get in specific properties from there. So this is use selector. So you don't need connect, you don't need map state to props, etc. You don't need those things. So let's actually refactor this part. So let's use import use state from React Redux. So we can remove this part. And let me remove. So basically that means that we don't need this component at all, right? Let me just, again, I will start using my counter directly. So you don't need to create these containers anymore. You can just use this directly. You don't pass any props now. Oh, you do. You actually do. You pass in your message, right? Let me just change it to hello. So you are passing your message. So here you'll have message. So now, if you want to get your state, you have state, you have use state, and state, and you have state. Sorry, let's console log our state. We don't have this. It will throw us error. I'm just removing my props from here. Okay, so let's go to the browser. Use state is not exported from React Redux. Okay, use state. Oh, okay, it's coming from React, sorry, my bad. So use state comes from React. It's a built-in thing. So it's not defined. Yeah, so now it's throwing us a few errors because we have some actions with that doesn't exist. So let me actually remove these things for now, just to show you. Yeah, I definitely need to remove such things. And count is not defined. Yeah, so 0 for now. Woo. So you can see that we have undefined and some function. This is our state. So if I do count, as I remember, oh no, it's undefined. Sorry, my bad. Wait a second. So let's check here. Not use state, use, oh my goodness. Sorry, I'm confused. So use state is a local state. This one is use, let's Redux hooks. So use selector. That comes from Redux. So import use selector from React Redux, and now you're just using selector from there. So let's try again. Yeah, so now it's 0, right? Because the whole state is just one number. We don't have any complex state. So for now, let's call it count. And we can actually put our count back. Yeah? Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you still have our 0. So now what about actually dispatching actions? This is another hook which is use dispatch. The dispatch. Yeah. So this is a hook. And again, you need to initialize this hook. So you do const dispatch. This is how we normally call it. And you have use dispatch, and this is it. So now let's add on click. And here we will have just dispatch. And we need to have our actions. So you still need to have them. Type increment. And here that will be decrement. So let's see. Yep, now it is working. And same for add. So here on submit, you will have submit. You will have form submit handler. And here you want to dispatch the action type will be add, and payload will be value, right? So you don't need to have any wrappers. You can directly do everything you need in your component. So if I refresh, increment is working, 5 adding, right? So it is working as it was, but now you don't need to have this index file, or you can just make it nicer to simplify the whole file structure. You can just replace your index file with this, close this one, and remove your count file. So now everything you had in counter file, you have in index file, and that means that you can shorten your route. Yep. Ooh. None is because it's empty. So we need to prevent default basically here. So if this is empty, we probably want to add 0 as a fallback. Let's try. Yep. We're not breaking the application.
Okay.
Yep, so now it is working. Perfect. Yeah, so this is a new way. Again, it's a bit messy. That is why people normally create a folder like actions. And there, in our simple case, we'll create like index.js. And here we will have export const. Let's call it increment. And that will be just our function. Remember to wrap it because that should be an object. Then we have probably decrement. So we delegating is here, and we will have our add. So here we will have our payload, and we will pass our payload. Yeah, so 3 actions. So now in our counter, I want to import these actions from there. So increment, decrement from So we want to go 1 level up, 2 levels up, actions, and add. Yeah, so it just cleaning up everything you have. So increment will be dispatch increment. By the way, that shouldn't be a function, that should be just an object in our case. But yeah, in like you can have it just an object, but if you have payload, you need to have a function, and that means that potentially you want to keep them all as functions. So here you'll have something like increment. Here you will have decrement. And here you will have your add. Add. Like this. Yeah. It's definitely less code here. So now it's still working. You can't break. And yeah, it is working. So yeah, this is how you splitting, and you have like reducers, you have your actions. To combine both, let's actually show you, because let's imagine that we in our reducer initial state is a bit more complex. So we have count here, and that will be 0, and we will have a message. That will be a string, right? So here we will remember that if you have a complex data, you want to spread old state, and you want the count will be state.count plus 1, right? For the second one, that will be -1. And for the third one, that will be plus payload. So this one will work. The problem here that we need to refactor our counter. I just want to console log. So now this one is actually state, the whole thing. So let me just console log count. So you'll see that this one will be broken. Yeah, see, it's broken because we try, this is an object. So let's put 0 for a sec. Now our state returns us two things, count and message. So what we can do is do here state.count. And let's try again. Now we have 0. So this is how you actually select in specific part of your state. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you have, and this one is still working. Yeah. So this is, and again, this is how you normally handle such things, because you have complex state. You will always have complex state, huge objects with a lot of data, and you need to bundle them. And then with the state is the whole state, the whole global store. And remember that last time we did combine different reducers into one, and all these combined reducers will create you just one store. And that means that you will build paths to the specific part of your store through the selector. So you might have something like user state dot users dot I don't know, find, let's say, where you have user, and imagine that you're getting ID from the parent. So user dot ID equals ID, and something like that, right? And you will get user.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get specific user from the state. Basically, state is a global variable for the whole application, and to get some data from that global variable, you just using use selector. As simple as that. Yep.
Interesting. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let me just remove this stuff. We don't need this part, and we don't want to pass this one. Any questions, by the way?
No questions, no.
Okay.
I really need to do the exercise.
Yeah, I agree, because that it's more about playing around. And again, I don't recommend you to use the map state to something and disconnect, etc., because nobody is using it like in like today. So when you will try to implement a Redux to your application, just do use selector and use dispatch for your application.
Mm-hmm.
I also recommend you to, so we have reducers actions, to keep the structure. So let's do Redux, and we will just move this and this. Yeah, still should work. Yeah. Basically keep the structure. So you have actions, reducers. You will also have, you might remember from the previous lesson that, again, to do less oh my gosh, less mistakes, you probably want to have constants and use constants as well. So you'll have something like const increment will be increment, const decrement will be decrement, and const add will be add. So now you just type and you use your actual constants. Yeah. Yes, I think that from Redux perspective, this is pretty much it. So nothing crazy. Don't need to, because remember that like with JavaScript, you need to do a setup and compile everything. But because React is compiled and you're compiling React for every single load, you don't need to do all this setup. To have Redux on the project, all you need is actually have provider and create store in your index.js, wrap your application into the provider, provide a store by creating it here, and then you can just start using it in any component. See that our app doesn't pass anything to our counter. We just directly from the counter have an access to the state through the use selector and use dispatch to modify it.
Yeah. So we kind of bypassing app.
Yeah, and if you change something here, you can create, let's say if in your app, let me just close this, create another component. Let's call it just value, I don't know, value component. And I will create value component, value. And, oh, sorry, that should be here. What's going on? Wait a second. My goodness, why? Let me just delete from here. Value. What's going on? Why doesn't allow me to create folder there? So this file is in counter. Yeah, that's fine. Folder value. Okay, finally. So index.js, rafc, that will be value, and we will have export default value, and here I will use import use selector from React Redux, and I will just do const count as well equals to use selector state, that will be state.count, and I will render my count here. Count. So again, I'm not passing any data from the counter to the app, nothing, it just direct, it just a completely independent component. I just need to add it here, value. You can see that value is here. If I'm incrementing, it's synchronized, and I can do whatever I want, right? Without passing anything. That is why it's great. But remember that Redux sometimes might be overkill, and be careful when you implementing it and think for which component you want to have Redux, for which data you want to have. Don't think that I will store everything in Redux, because this is a bad approach. You want to actually think that, okay, this is a local data, I want to have it here as use state, as local state. Or this is a global one that I want to share with other components. So yeah, just store it in Redux. Yeah. Okay. Any questions? No? Yes?
No. As I said, I think I need to do the exercises to get the feel for it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think this is it about React and Redux. And yeah. This is the last lesson for us. As I said before, that it doesn't mean that you can't ask me any questions after that. So even if you finish with lessons, feel free to come with questions, and yeah, I'm always happy to help you and jump on a call basically to work on to help you with your exercises or projects, etc. So even after the course, I'm happy to do that. No problem at all.
Cool. Well, that's appreciated. Thank you.
We will organize. I'm still thinking when to do that, but we want to organize a recruitment session. I'm not sure how interested you are in meet the actual recruiter from tech industry to talk about basically how to approach the market.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we will organize it very soon. So I'll send you a message in our channel, and yeah, we will have some call with the recruiter. And yeah, I think.
Perfect. Do you think with all we have learned, I mean, obviously we need to do all the exercises and everything, that we have a level to start in development?
As a developer?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. I, to be honest, I know many developers that are working as developers that know less than we've covered during the course.
Okay.
Really, actually. So yeah, when you finish because you've done a lot, and when you finish all your exercises and projects, you will have with projects you will have good portfolio where you can demonstrate that, okay, I know React, I know Redux, I know the backend, I know how to like send data, create like work with databases, create APIs, etc. And as I said, it's far more than many junior developer knows.
Okay, that's good to know. All right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay then. I think then this is it. It's sad to say goodbye, but
Yeah, well, it is sad, but it is at the same time not goodbye, because I'm sure
yep,
I'll be
you'll come back.
on Slack asking questions. So
Yeah, no worries. That's fine.
we're just going through a phase a bit difficult with the family and work, so I kind of have to be on pause a bit on the exercises. But
Yeah,
as soon as we stabilize, I'll be back.
I understand. Yeah, no worries. As I said, you're in Slack. We have this Slack for that reason, that we can communicate. And there is basically, we've covered. Just want to repeat myself, that we've covered everything you need to be a developer. We've covered React, Node, JavaScript. Like the whole course was about JavaScript. So you definitely know JavaScript very good.
HTML, CSS, Node, servers.
Yep.
I mean, putting together the server, MongoDB,
MySQL.
Yep. We did a lot to use.
Yeah, there is not much.
Serverless rendering.
Yeah. Exactly. There is not much to learn for a web developer.
At the same time, I feel like there is that we are scratching the surface, and there is so much. But it is exciting. So.
Yeah, that's fun. The coding is fun. It's always, you can always find something to learn, but I think that this stack you just need to master, and you'll be ready to be a developer and work as a developer.
And do you do other languages now, or are you focused on JavaScript, React?
Just JavaScript. JavaScript is too big, because with JavaScript you have Node.js, and you don't need to learn. If you want to go to like specifically like mobile development, you probably need to learn some, like, I don't know, for example, Swift or React Native or Java, depends on what platform you want to work. But if you, or data science, you want to go to data science, so it's just a completely different subject. But for web development, you look
at things like I don't know, in the crypto world there are so many.
Yeah, blockchain. It's just
blockchain. There are like new languages that are creating like frameworks that are created where you can enter and do your own little blockchain. I don't know. Very interesting.
Again, this is like a completely different area. But for web development, you already know everything you need, because you have both sides. So
Perfect. Cool. Well, thank you, Vasilis. It was a pleasure. These past 5 months were intense, sometimes a bit nerve-wracking, but in the end, I am very grateful for having had this experience. So thank you.
Thank you. Great to hear that you enjoyed. And our goal is to keep our students stressed. Because you need to constantly leave your comfort zone to grow. So
well, I did. So I did a lot of, countless nights where I was up until 2 a.m. while the family is asleep, and it would be very sometimes very frustrating. But in the end, I felt always happy when I was submitting to Git my exercises on my project. So and I felt the progress, and as I said last time, I think when you're in this zone where you just enjoy what you do and you kind of don't count the hours, it's a great feeling. So I was very happy to have that.
Yeah. Great.
Still not sure what I'm gonna do with that, honestly, but I still need to, do the exercise and keep practicing, because I just feel like not doing the exercise for 2 weeks, I feel already a bit kind of behind. So
Yeah, that is why you probably heard about 100 days of code kind of challenge.
yeah,
So
that makes sense.
yeah, the whole purpose of that is just to, even if you spend 15 minutes daily, that's more than enough to not forget everything.
Yeah.
So this is the whole point of this challenge, is that because if you have a break, like even if you're a developer and you have a break for, I don't know, for a month or two, you will spend like the first few days after, you will spend like memorizing what happened, what was that, and like how to do this or that. So yeah, don't do breaks, just keep do a little, just a little, but every day.
Yeah, so it's like the piano or like a music instrument, you were saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Or sports, actually. If you just stop, it's very difficult to come back.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Sure. Well, thanks, Vasil, and speak soon.
Yeah, speak to you soon.
Yeah.
Bye.